The Judiciary Committee will come to order. Without objection, the chair is authorized to declare recesses of the committee at any time. We welcome everyone to today's hearing on lessons from the Mueller report, presidential obstruction and other crimes. I will now recognize myself for an opening statement. Just over 2 years ago, Special Counsel Robert Mueller was charged with conducting a full and thorough investigation of the Russian government's efforts to interfere in the 2016 presidential election, unquote, including an examination of, quote, any links and or coordination between the Russian government and individuals associated with the campaign of President Donald Trump, and any matters that arose or may arise directly from the investigation, close quote. He concluded in his own words, quote, Russian intelligence officers who were part of the Russian military launched a concerted attack on our political system. Those officers used sophisticated cyber techniques to hack into computers and networks used by the Clinton campaign. They stole private information and then released that information through fake online identities and through the organization WikiLeaks. We now know that the Russian government timed their operation to interfere with our election, to harm the candidacy of Secretary Clinton, and to benefit the Trump campaign. Separately, the special counsel concluded that Russian entities, quote, engaged in a social media operation where Russian citizens posed as Americans in order to interfere in the election, close quote. Using fake identities on social media platforms like Facebook and Twitter, these operatives planned rallies in favor of the president and spread lies about Secretary Clinton made to look like legitimate media. Again, these activities represent a direct attack on our democratic process. With respect to these two specific operations by the Russian government, the special counsel did not find sufficient evidence to charge Trump campaign officials with conspiracy against the United States. He did, however, document at least 171 contacts between members of the Trump campaign and transition team and the Russian government. 16 Trump campaign officials are known to have had direct communications with Russian agents. Representatives of the Trump campaign exchanged emails and phone calls and held face-to-face meetings with high-level Russian government officials, Russian oligarchs, and even some of the hackers the special counsel accused of working to sway the election. There can be no question that Congress must investigate this direct attack on our democratic process. I believe that Ranking Member Collins agrees that we must do so without delay. In a letter he sent last month, he urged the committee to call Robert Mueller to testify during the Memorial Day recess if necessary, both for the sake of transparency and, quote, for the American public to learn the full contours of the special counsel's investigation, close quote. In a letter he sent last week, the ranking member again asked us to examine, quote, the threat Russia and other nefarious actors have played and may continue to play in our elections, close quote. Over the course of the coming weeks, this committee will do just that. We will examine the effects of foreign influence on our elections. I hope that we will hear testimony from the special counsel as well. But the country cannot hope to understand the Russian government's attack on our democratic system if we do not also investigate who stood to benefit from that attack and the extent to which the Trump campaign may have welcomed it. Similarly, we cannot fully understand the special counsel's work without also discussing President Trump's repeated attempts to undermine it. In his report, the special counsel describes 10 separate incidents in which the president attempted to change the scope or direction of the investigation or to end it altogether. At one point, President Trump ordered White House counsel Don McGahn to fire the special counsel. Later, he asked McGahn to write a letter stating that the incident never happened. McGahn said he would rather resign. At different stages, he asked Attorney General Jeff Sessions to unrecuse, in quotes, himself and to step in to direct the investigation away from the president's conduct. And of course, the president's public statements about this investigation before and after the results of the Mueller report are, at best, at odds with the evidence laid out in the report itself. There can be no question that this committee must investigate this behavior as well. Today's hearing is the first in a series of hearings designed to unpack the work of the special counsel and related matters. We have a responsibility to do this work, to follow the facts where they lead, to make recommendations to the whole House as circumstances warrant, and to craft legislation that makes certain no president, Democrat or Republican, can ever act in this way again. Our witnesses today include 3 former federal prosecutors, each of whom has considerable experience weighing the kind of evidence laid out by the special counsel in his report and in his indictments of 34 individuals, including President Trump's national security advisor, his campaign manager, his deputy campaign manager, and his personal attorney. Our panel also includes Mr. John Dean, who served as White House counsel to President Nixon and who became a critical witness for prosecutors and congressional investigators attempting to respond to President Nixon's attempt to obstruct the Department of Justice and the FBI. We will rely on the expertise of these witnesses to help draw our own conclusions about the findings of the special counsel and other evidence before us today. We will do so mindful of the House rules that prevent us from making inappropriate personal references to the President, to members of this committee, and to other members of Congress. But the rules of decorum in the House of Representatives are a shield, not a sword. The rules are designed to focus the debate on the facts and the law, and can therefore help us discuss the findings of the special counsel with the seriousness they deserve. The rules are not, however, an opportunity to avoid discussing serious allegations of misconduct altogether. I know that the ranking member and I disagree on any number of topics, including on what conclusions we should draw from the facts laid out by the special counsel. For example, in his last letter, he argued that President Trump has been, quote, vindicated, unquote, by the special counsel's report. I cannot agree with that conclusion. Neither, I believe, could the special counsel, given his insistence that his report, quote, does not exonerate the president, close quote. But I also know that the ranking member and I agree on the seriousness of the attack on our elections, and that we must work together to make it more difficult for any president to ignore the danger that presented itself in 2016. That work continues in this hearing room today, and it continues at the Department of Justice later this afternoon, when this committee will begin to review some of the documents that Attorney General Barr previously denied us. I am pleased that we have reached an agreement to review at least some of the evidence underlying the Mueller report, including interview notes, firsthand accounts of misconduct, and other critical evidence, and that this material will be made available without delay to members of the committee on both sides of the aisle. As a result, I see no need to resort to the criminal contempt statute to enforce our April 19th subpoena, at least for now, so long as the department upholds its end of the bargain. But our arrangement with the department does not extend to the full scope of our request for the full Mueller report and its underlying materials, including grand jury information, nor does it extend to our demand that Don McGahn, a key fact witness, testify before this committee. Our work will therefore continue tomorrow on the House floor when we consider Chairman McGovern's resolution to authorize this committee to enforce its subpoena through civil litigation. It is my expectation that as a result of this authorization, Mr. McGahn will testify before long. And between now and then, we still have an obligation to investigate the deeply troubling evidence outlined by the special counsel. Not merely the portions that implicate Russian nationals, as some have suggested, but the entire report, including the volume that lays out some of the president's troubling behavior. The committee's work is serious. We should delay it no further. We should conduct ourselves in a manner that is consistent with the rules of the House and worthy of this chamber. And even if we cannot agree to draw the same conclusions from the evidence, we should at least proceed with a common understanding. We were attacked. We were attacked by a foreign adversary. President Trump's campaign took full advantage of the attack when it came. The descriptions of obstruction of justice in Volume 2 go to the heart of our legal system. If we can agree on this common set of facts as our starting place and agree to follow the facts and the law where they take us, I believe we can make a great deal of progress in this hearing today. I thank the panel for being here today, and I look forward to your testimony. Before we proceed further, I want to note for the record that the gentlelady from Pennsylvania, Ms. Dean, is unable to be with us today due to a death in the family. She very much wanted to participate in today's hearing, and I did not want anyone to misinterpret her absence. It is now my pleasure to recognize the ranking member of the Judiciary Committee, the gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Collins, for his opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. and I appreciate especially the last, and I would extend my prayers and thoughts to Ms. Dean as well. I'm just a little under a year. In fact, Monday this week will be 1 year from losing my mother. So it is, for all of us, we go through that, and it's an expression of love. However, I will come to this hearing today and say that we are continuing. I appreciate the chairman's understanding. I appreciate the chairman outlining a great deal of the basic conclusion that was an affirmative conclusion from the Mueller investigation. That was the foreign interference in the Russian part of this. What is amazing, though, and I agree with the chairman's assessment of being attacked, and that's something we've known. The Russians were always a part. For some of us, we've been talking about the Russians for a long time in that. But it's about priorities. And here's my question about priorities and coming to this hearing. And the question of priorities is if we were attacked, as the chairman just said, then the priority should be to go to the battlefield on the attack where we were attacked on and not run by the sideshow to hear from the commentators. We should actually go to the one that Mr. Mueller actually said was, we have a problem here. We're showing you we've actually introduced indictments here. How can we firm up our elections? How can we do away with foreign interference? How can we do that? It's about priorities. And I think what has happened here is the chairman is showing the priorities. The priorities were from November 2016, it appears that we have an issue with who got elected president. And we thought the Mueller investigation would solve this for us, and it really did not, even after a lot of discussion. We're going to hear a lot about that today and the discussion that we have. But it goes back to priorities, and priorities of bringing what we focus on and how we focus on it. And if you look at the witnesses today and you discuss what was actually just went on for a while, we're not bringing Russia front and center. We're not bringing the threats to our election front and center, although I appreciate the chairman reading the letters that I send him and understanding what we could actually be working on. And I'm wanting to move forward there. But however, here we come with some folks that are great folks. You're wonderful on TV. I could catch your testimony on TV. In fact, by the way, I could this morning. I'm a Republican. I believe that you use everything that you've got, do as much business as you want and generate as much as you want to work for yourself. But I don't believe it's the problem of this committee to have to come and hear from those who are not a part of the Mueller investigation, who are not a part of this, pontificating on things that you can do on TV like all of us get a chance to do occasionally, but not here on the hearing. But then we get, and I'm sort of reminded of the Russia priority issue, because just a few years ago it was brought up and one of our candidates talked about Russia being a threat, and the former president, Mr. Obama, said, you know, that the 80s are asking for their foreign policy back. Well, guess what? This committee is now hearing from the 70s, and